going to briefly talk to you about what OCD has done for me in the best possible way. I remember at Honey Lake, sitting in my therapist's office and just feeling like I just felt defeated because I looked over the landscape, the spiritual landscape of my life, and I felt like I was someone who was looking at the aftermath of a F5 hurricane or tornado that had come through. The tornado was gone, but the aftermath was there. And I looked out and nothing was left. It had all been utterly destroyed. Guys, God is so gracious. God is so gracious. God is so gracious. And at that moment, I felt just utterly destroyed, utterly terrified. Not terrified. I wasn't terrified. I was just heartbroken, and I feel like over the last several days, as I have walked on through this journey, it's like I'm seeing clearer and clearer and clearer. And here's what OCD did for me. OCD came in and ripped up all of my preconceived notions. Everything I had basically learned from the time I was a kid. It wasn't by choice. It wasn't by choice. OCD came in and destroyed everything. Even my lack, even my desire to read the word, even my desire to pray. I couldn't even muster it up. I couldn't do it. I couldn't muster up the desire to pray. I couldn't muster up the desire to read my word. I couldn't muster up any affection towards the Lord. I just looked out at my life, because before my breakdown 8-9 years ago, I can't believe it's been that long, but I remember I made a terrible mistake, and God in His mercy redeemed me and pulled me out of a pit that I placed myself in. Like, I got myself in that position, and God in His mercy pulled me out of the pit. And that's when my life was changed, because it was in that moment that I realized I really am a sinner. And I really am quite capable of things I never thought I'd be capable of. And something in me changed. And after that, I began to read my word. And since then, I've read my Bible cover to cover. I just remember going, I'm supposed to be a Christian, and yet I've never even read the word for myself, never even read through it. And and after that, like, there was something in me that changed from just being excited about going to heaven to being excited about seeing Jesus. And for years, I'd cry when I worshiped, every time I worshiped. And I loved to get in my word. And so when OCD hit me the way it did, September of 2023, and I broke down, and it felt like God was either thousands of miles away, non-existent, or had his back turned towards me. Either way, it was very dark, and I felt like I was at the gates of hell. The torment that I was enduring was awful. And it was horrible. And so I spent a lot of years working through my OCD, trying to get back to that girl that I was. And I did not realize the whole time God is like, let her go. Let her go. And a lot happened while I was at Honey Lake, but for me, I looked out at the landscape of my spiritual life and everything that I felt like it was built in that time of my life, you know, from that time to my OCD breakdown had been destroyed, and even like the raising that I had, like everything and at the time it felt bad, but God has allowed me to understand now that I saw what OCD had done. But then in dealing with OCD, it forced me to not depend on my own understanding. It forced me to lean on him. It forced me to trust him only, to trust his work, to trust. And it's funny because I remember I would ask the Lord innocent childlike questions like, I don't even think I know what the Holy Spirit even does. Like, what does he do? Because I was raised, and you know, ironically, I was raised Pentecostal. So if you're raised Pentecostal, the Holy Spirit makes you run around, do the helicopter, and speak in tongues. And don't hear me say that I'm completely against all that. But that's what I thought, you know, that the Holy Spirit does that. But y'all, the Holy Spirit does so much more. And eventually I learned, because OCD makes you feel like you have to have everything figured out. And then in the pressure of having to have everything figured out, then it forces you to lean on your own understanding. So the opposite of that is to learn that you don't have to have everything figured out and intentionally not lean on your own understanding. And you have to learn to wait on the Lord to teach you, which the Bible tells us, by the way, that he will teach us. I feel like I'm a new creation. I feel like I'm a completely different person. Like I feel like I'm a completely different person than I was, in the best possible way, because God allowed the OCD to come through and basically just rip everything out like a demolition, like a wrecking ball, because there was so much that needed to be changed, and I didn't see that, but he did. And so, but in tearing everything out, it gave him the ability to guide me through his word, and the word become more alive to me than it ever has, and the understanding of what the Spirit does in my life. And I'm still working through that. Like what he does versus what I do, and just allowing him to teach me and guide me like a shepherd, and show me like to lean on him and not on myself. And as I continue to walk, it's like the burdens are just falling off of me. Burdens I didn't even realize I was carrying. Not just sin. Like he is changing my heart. He is the one that's doing the work. And this is why growing up in a church that makes you feel like you got to do more, you got to do more, you got to do more. We have to teach the gospel. We must teach the gospel. It's grace alone, through Christ alone. It's Him alone. And it's His Holy Spirit working in you to enable you to do those things. And you may have to be like Paul, where Paul had a radical conversion story, but then he did not immediately go out and start teaching. He was in a period of 3 years, and it's not that he didn't do any ministry at all there, but in that 3 years he was like just rebuilding. And that's what I feel, that's the stage I feel like I'm in. I'm like, I've got people that are asking me to come do certain things, and I just feel led to step back and allow the Lord to work in me what He's wanting to work in me, and let Him process that, bring me to the maturity that I need to maybe step forward into something greater that would have destroyed me before. It would have destroyed me, whatever that is. And I'm not saying that, oh, I've got this big call on my... I've just learned to slow down and trust the Lord, and trust His timing, trust His processing, and just allow Him to work. But I wanted to give you that testimony today, a word of encouragement for someone who may be struggling. Like, lean into refusing to give in to OCD and allow the Lord to set you free. I hope this helps somebody today. Love you, mean it, bye.